Hello everybody, welcome back to Planet X News. This is Scott from the Nibiru channel, August 24th, 2017. You know, ladies and gentlemen, over the last couple of days, I've been looking at some NASA images of the International Space Station and some video provided by NASA. And it's showing the International Space Station transiting in front of the sun during this eclipse. I also have been looking at some of the photographs that are being supplied by NASA, and I'm going to show you some of this information that I've acquired, and it's quite interesting, and it is also raising my eyebrows. So the big question is, was this a computer-generated image by NASA of the International Space Station crossing in front of the sun during this eclipse? You know, ladies and gentlemen, since this eclipse event was publicized, it seemed like it became first a national event in the United States, and then soon after, an international event. And NASA TV was all over this. And I've been going over their footage, and if you watched our live stream the other day, I pointed out many things that just did not look right and did not make sense. But we'll get into that at another time. I want to show you exactly what I'm talking about. So we're going to go ahead and get into this file here. And I'm just going to go ahead and share with you some of the video. And this was the International Space Station. You could see it here. I mean, it really doesn't look like much. And this is going to loop through and replay. And, you know, I mean, with all of the technology that NASA has, I thought maybe when I viewed this video that it would at least be much more clear. And we can see the International Space Station transiting the sun during this event. But this is what we got, and this is not the only video that was being supplied. So now that we've taken a quick look at this, which really doesn't look like much, I mean, it has the shape of the space station, and it's moving across the face of the sun, rather rapidly, I might say. We're going to take a look at this video. Now you can see this little tiny dot moving across. You have this dark disk just simply stationary, not moving. Now this is a close-up, and again, I mean, this is what you're given. With all of the technology, we just simply see a small blur. Excuse me. Just a small blur moving across to, you know, your screen. And again, you know, I would think that we would get some more, you know, more of a higher definition of this view. It should have been a spectacular view of the International Space Station transiting the sun during this eclipse. But this is what we get. It kind of looks like a fly crossing the lens of the camera. Sorry to laugh, but I mean, I'm starting to think that this is just a complete joke. You know, and I was viewing a lot of different footages, you know, coming from people down on the ground. I was listening to commentary from a lot of people. You know, and you have your NASA fanboys, you know, their fan club, that no matter what they do, it's perfect. But I'm just not buying this. I mean, especially with their technology. I mean, this is the best imaging that we're getting of the space station transiting in front of the sun during this eclipse. And no other movement of the disk here which should be the moon. Now, I'm going to show you some photographs, and they are still photographs. They were supplied by NASA. They are NASA's photographs. And I'm going to show you what I uncovered in one of their photographs that they publicized in one of their NASA articles talking about the eclipse. Now that we've seen enough of this mess, let's move on. Now, they publicized this. This was actually several passes. This was pass number 2. If you look down here, this was pass number 2 of the space station. Right here you can see the line that, well, the path of totality, the line that the moon took as it crossed over. You can see right here the International Space Station, where it was, and then they give you a bunch of, numbers over here, the coordinates. So this was actually posted in the article. Really not much the common individual can really follow. It's a pretty diagram. It looks good. But does it help us with anything? Not really. Now, this is one of the other photographs that NASA supplied. Okay, this is supposedly from the International Space Station, and this shadow right there is supposed to be the shadow of the moon casted upon the Earth. Let's take a little closer look at it. I mean, again, it really doesn't look like much, but that's what they supplied us with. And again, folks, kind of very limited information. We're going to go ahead and move on. Let me just make sure I'm in the right place here. Yeah, here's the other photograph. Again, this was supplied by the International Space Station. I'll go ahead and zoom in here for you. Now, in your opinion, I mean, does that look like it is a real photograph, or does that look like it was possibly, I'll just use the terminology, airbrushed? Because it really doesn't look like much to me. And then, surprisingly, over in the photograph, you see these two objects. I have no idea what they are. Now, we could zoom in and maybe try to check them out, but they really don't look like much. The picture kind of pixelates a little bit. But again, it really doesn't look like much. I'm really not impressed at all with their coverage of the eclipse, and with a lot of the photographs and the imaging coming from this. They made it to be such a grand event, publicized across the world, and basically this is what we're getting. So to me, that looks like somebody just basically, kind of airbrushed a little bit of dark coloring in there to create that shadow effect. But again, folks, these are just my opinions. Now, this is a photograph. I'm going to zoom in here. This is a photograph that was publicized on the NASA website, and this is a photograph of the sun in the background, which you see right here, and supposedly the moon. And this is the transit of the moon right across the face of the sun. Now, you do see a disc type object in the back. Could this be a reflective anomaly coming from the camera and the filtering system? Yes, there's a big possibility, high possibility, that that is what that is. But that's not the reason why I want to show you this photograph. When I took this photograph and I started taking this photograph apart, I noticed something very, very surprising. And we're going to get right into that. So you can already see something partially illuminated right here. And it seems to me that they tried to either darken this photograph before it was released, and they basically did not do a good enough job. So I'm going to show you what I found. Now, this was an inverted, same photograph, just inverted in color. Now, the black disk is going to represent the sun. And you'll see this other disk that was illuminated in the background that could possibly be, you know, a background reflection of the sun. But that's really not what I'm looking at. I really don't care what this is behind the sun. What I'm interested in is the shape right here, which is supposed to be the moon passing in front of the sun, therefore creating this eclipse. But as you look at it, I'm going to zoom in so you can just take a really close look at it. You know, the moon's not perfectly spherical, but I would expect to see something a little bit more in the lines of a spherical disk than what we're seeing here. It just doesn't, I mean, it just doesn't look like anything to me. It doesn't look like anything at all. It looks to me like the photograph has been doctored in some way. It just doesn't look natural at all. And then, as I inverted that photograph, I could start to see some coloring shapes over here. And I thought to myself, okay, you know, might be some type of reflections from the camera and the lighting. But as I further got into it, and I started brightening just with, you know, just using the brightening on my regular picture program, nothing, you know, super sophisticated, I start to see why the photograph was so dark. And this is what I came up with. Now, once again, we have the disk of the sun illuminated. You have this anomaly in the back. But then we have these objects. One is blue. The other is kind of a rusty orange or brown color. And then you could see another partial disk right here. Now, because they darkened this photograph in the beginning, because I don't think that was the actual natural photograph. I think when they took that photograph, they saw what I am seeing, and then they quickly darkened the photograph. So as we zoom in, I mean, we really don't see much of anything as far as the moon. And again, the shape is just, it just doesn't seem spherical. It seems like it's almost flattened out a little bit. But again, you know, folks, these are just my opinions on what I'm looking at. And if we go ahead and look at these two anomalies, I mean, what could they possibly be? Could they possibly be, you know, what do they call them? Lens flares? Yeah, I don't think so. We're going to take a look at another photograph. Now, once again, this is another type of inversion of the actual photograph itself. Nothing else has been done to it, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing. And again, the black disk here is going to represent the sun. Again, we have the anomaly in the back, which could be possibly a reflection within the camera. It's very hard to say. But again, as we zoom in and we try to look and see what is actually eclipsing the sun. So, do you see what I'm trying to show you? This doesn't even look like a spherical object. It doesn't look like a spherical object to me at all. So this is what NASA supplied. This was what they are showing the general public. Not this particular picture, but the first one that was darkened. And then once again, we start to see these other objects, which are actually more spherical in shape than what is supposed to be the moon, transiting in front of the sun on August 21st, 2017. What we're being led to believe was an eclipse. Now, once again, here's a same photograph, a different kind of inversion. And once again, you know, we're looking at this photograph. I don't clearly see an object that's perfectly spherical. It almost seems to just flat. And again, you know, because of the perspective of how this photograph was taken, it's kind of hard to say. But when you start to see objects like this, and like this, and like this, personally, I've never seen the so-called lens flare produce images like that. 3 different sizes of orbs or spheres, and in 3 different colors. And again, this is inverted, but you can see you have a rusty brown color, a blue, and kind of a gray. And you can tell that they are perfect spheres. More perfect than what this flattened sphere of an object is, that they want us to believe was clearly the moon. Now, this photograph here, once again, we're going to zoom into this. And you tell me, where do you actually see the moon? Because you're looking at the black disk, which is the sun, this anomaly behind the sun, and this is supposed to be the moon. Right there. I mean, I'll zoom into it for you, and you can take a few screenshots of this and maybe analyze it yourself. I'm going to post some of these photographs on the Planet X News Facebook page. If any of you would like to just, you know, copy and download the photographs and, you know, use them however you want. Use your color program in your computer and see what you can come up with. But as I view this photograph, I really don't see the moon. Now, understanding that we're not going to see detail on the moon because of the lighting situation. Now, talking about lighting, let's go up here and see if we could bring this in and edit this photograph right here. We'll zoom in a little bit. Let's adjust some of the lighting. And as you start to adjust the lighting, you start to see these 3 objects come into play. But we don't see any definition come in with the moon, the passing disk in front of the sun. So we'll just do this live. Now, I mean, this is what you would look at. This is what you would look at from NASA. This is what they want you to see. But again, whenever you shed some light on the subject, oh bingo, that is what you see. What exactly the objects are? Well, let your imagination run wild on that. Now we'll just brighten it up. We'll increase the exposure. And things start to really, you know, kind of come clean a little bit there. Now, even though the photograph is highly pixelated, that's not my fault. That's NASA's fault. Now, if you're going to be taking images like this and all the money that NASA has, why would you not be doing this in high definition? I mean, really super high definition. And then, you know, looking closer here, I'm starting to think that a lot of what we're seeing was computer generated, kind of CGI quality manipulation. Very strange. And again, if you take the exposure out, look what you see. That's what you see. And then you would say to yourself, okay, that looks like an eclipse. But was it really? So this is what we're looking at from NASA. And then as you increase the exposure, well, that's what you find. You find something totally different. We're going to click over to the next photo. Same thing. I just added a little bit of exposure to this to see what I can see, and bingo. Was it a small planetary system that they're trying to hide? Ladies and gentlemen, we'll never know. Now, here was the original photograph, and again, it's kind of dark. It really doesn't show much. But that's what they gave us. That's it. Right there. And again, if you try to manipulate the photograph just a little bit, you'll clearly start to see right over here. You'll see these objects. And we'll do it right here. We'll see what we come up with. This is the original photograph. We'll just, right off the bat, go to our lighting. We'll go to our exposure. And there you go. 1, 2, 3. I don't know, folks. I'm really not buying the whole eclipse situation. There are tens of thousands of other people that are really not buying it either. And then whenever you start getting over to, once again, the video, again, I would expect to see something more higher definition, something more in detail when you're dealing with the International Space Station transiting the sun during the eclipse. I mean, that looks like something a third grader would do, And this would be, this would be pretty easy to fake, because you're not supplying high definition detail. You're not supplying a really, really good zoomed in version of this video. Nothing. This is it. Now the sunspots seem to be correct, but in the time that the International Space Station transits in front of the sun, you'll notice that the black disk, whatever it is, doesn't move at all. And again, folks, this really wouldn't be that hard to manipulate into a video like you're watching right now. The disk doesn't move at all. And I'm referring to this black disk. It doesn't move, not one bit. Even if you sped this video up, you would expect to see that black disk move a little bit, because it is supposed to be a body in motion in space. The moon. The moon does not just sit still. It moves. It orbits the Earth. But that's not what we're seeing in the NASA footage. We're seeing a stationary black disk, a stationary sun, And the only thing that we see moving, it looks like kind of like a fly moving across the screen. Just me analyzing it. Again, you know, ladies and gentlemen, you could have your own opinions naturally of what you're seeing, but this is what's being supplied to the world population. I'm just not buying it. I don't know about you guys. Just not buying it. Now, yesterday, myself and the doctor, we were viewing some images of the sun, and I'm going to give you a little preview of what we're investigating right now. And we're going to be doing a live stream on this later on today, probably within a few hours. And what we're coming up with is during the coronal mass ejection that occurred around the 22nd, 21st, 22nd, 23rd of July. I forget the exact date. That was a pretty big coronal mass ejection on the backside of the sun. We all reported on it. We all saw it. And then, as the sun started to turn back towards Earth, and that sunspot once again, we saw this big, gigantic, what I refer to as a blemish on the surface of the sun. Right here. You can see it. This big discoloration here. Now, you would think that over the course of... Oops, wrong photograph. You would think over the course of a month, an exact month, because yesterday was the 23rd. And this occurred between the 22nd and 23rd. So we were able to catch views yesterday of the backside of the sun through stereo, the stereo satellite probe. And this blemish, as I'm calling it, is still there. It still looks pretty much the same as it did a month ago. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in just a little bit. Now, this is an inverted photograph of the blue photo that I just showed you. And these are not plasma loops. They're not plasma loops. There's no sunspot going on here. It just does not look right. And when I was conferring with the doctor yesterday about this, we're starting to think, and just in theory, did something hit the sun? Did something collide with the sun? A much, much smaller object, and I'm not referring to a little sundiver comet, because that would not affect the sun in this way at all, no matter how big the comet was. Usually the sun vaporizes these sundivers as they come in. They never reach the outer surface. But on the day of this CME, something came in. Has anything ever impacted the sun? I don't know if there's any evidence out there showing something like that. But a month later, we now have pretty close to a spherical blemish again. Right there. And we have other detailed photographs that I captured yesterday, and I still have more work to do on obtaining more of the time-lapsed photographs. But you know what makes us even more suspicious, ladies and gentlemen? In the time frames, in the timestamps, once again, leading up to this supposed CME, all of the timestamps, all of the video footage has been deleted. Did you hear me? It has all been deleted. All of it. There is no record of it. At least not for the general public to see. So therefore, if something did impact the sun, or the sun had such a violent reaction to an object that literally possibly sucked it in, we don't know exactly what happened. But all we know is that we have detected, once again, the general public being deceived with deleting footage, deleting information that is very vital to investigating what happened and what created this massive mark on the sun. We need to know what occurred on that date. I think it's very important, and the doctor also thinks it's very important. And yesterday we worked on this for hours on end. And we're going to continue to try and figure it out. We're going to try to gather more images. Now, I do have a lot of images that we'll show you in our next live stream later on today. And they're very, very clear. They're very clear. You're going to see, it almost looks like a splash impact. And you're going to see that. But I have other images that I have to capture today before those disappear. That way we have that information to show all of you. But some very, very suspicious circumstances, going back in time now, dealing with this CME, that we're being led to believe that that's actually what happened late July, dealing with that sunspot AR 2665. So please make sure you stay tuned. Make sure you share our videos with your friends and family members on Facebook and Twitter. And again, feel free to take screenshots, from our live streams or our videos, and see if you could play around with the photographs and maybe see what you can come up with. But the theory that is in my mind, and what is starting to brew, is that we don't know the whole story, what occurred on that date back in July when that massive coronal mass ejection occurred. We saw it on the coronagraphs, C2 and C3. We saw it on the cactus coronagraph. But we actually had a camera that recorded it on stereo. Stereo A recorded this event. That's a fact. But all of the video footage, all the timestamps have been deleted. They've been deleted. So now that's going to lead us into, picking and prying and investigating a little bit more and to see what we can find out. It's my general theory that I truly believe on that date, towards the end of July, when that CME exploded from the sun, I'm now starting to believe that it was due to a massive impact on the backside of the sun, which was not facing the earth. But ladies and gentlemen, make sure you have your notifications set up for our channel. Make sure that you are subscribed. And later on today, the doctor and I will be bringing you the evidence and the information that we are putting together later on this morning. So make sure you stay tuned. This is Scott from Planet X News and the Nibiru channel. Thank you for watching.